that would mean that a bank would be able to make, okay money, but they'd have to watch their P's and Q's and so forth. On the other hand, if the spread is 18%, they can hire all kinds of fancy gunslingers and have million-dollar offices for them and have them invent weird crap that we then go and foist off on China and poison the well in that relationship.
It makes sense to me.
Let's
go to the phones. Simple. Let's go to the phones because the calls are starting to back up again. Mike from Kentucky, you're on line 1. Do you have a question or comment for George?
Well, you would think when the Patriot Act was being debated and voted on that we could have learned some lesson from that, because a lot of people couldn't contact their congressman to say, hey, we don't want you voting for this, or this is what's wrong with the bill, because of a couple of letters showing up in the office building. So why can't we have a decentralized communication system with our Congress?
That's exactly it. There you go. And that's
continuity of government. They talk about all this continuity of government stuff.
Right. Instead of having one target, the U.S. government could be made what a good IT manager would call cloud government, right?
Well, the old country saying, not to sound like Ross Perot, would be, you got all your eggs in one basket.
That's right. And there's nothing wrong with old country sayings, because hate to say it, but remember what Ross Perot said about NAFTA, history proved the man correct.
But wait a minute here, guys. We're missing the big point. The powers that be do not want the U.S. to succeed. They do not want the other major countries in the world to succeed. They want to control it all.
Yes, but they forget one little thing. They ain't really the powers. The founders of the United States of America made we the people the power, not them.
That's just for show.
I'm sorry?
That's just for show. That's how they sold.
I know.
That's how they sold the masses on this form of government.
But
Mike, you obviously get it.
I'm kidding.
And I just flashed on. We've been talking about movies a lot tonight in terms of metaphors. The movie Pay It Forward. There's 4 of us right now here on RBN on this show who get it. That 4 needs to become 16. Needs to become. You get the idea.
It needs to be 306 million. Let's be serious.
Exactly.
And we need to vote with our wallets.
And George, this is why, by trade, I'm an educator and a college basketball coach. I did not have time to do this. But as I started looking at this country just slipping away and my 8-year-old's future is already in the toilet, I couldn't afford not to do it for his sake. And the audience has heard me say this a lot. This is the sole reason why I do this. And it really is going to take all of us educating everyone who's ignorant. I mean, Andy and I talked about this today. The country is waking up to some degree. But I still think about 75% of the masses are asleep and they're vulnerable to being manipulated by one force or another.
Oh, sure. And there's a reason that, I won't go into my standard speech about, passing out pacifier pills to anybody who says they have an emotional problem. Unfortunately, the better living through chemistry mindset has really permeated our thinking, and the ability to get tough and get her done has slowly slipped away.
No question. If you lack the will, take a pill. Mike, thanks for the call.
Sure.
Let's go to Dan in Houston on line 2. Hi, Dan. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. My son was murdered, shot to death, and so it got my attention. And I'm running for mayor of Houston, and news to say I'm running to stop Houston being a sanctuary city and also to stop illegal immigration in Houston. And most people think, well, that's just a waste of time. It's too late. But it's been done. If you look at the New American Magazine, several cities and states, like the one in the sheriff in Arkansas and Arizona, he's completely done it. They've left his county. And the whole entire state of Oklahoma, using that ICE law, the ICE 87 law, they started giving them food stamps. And then if the guy's pulled over driving a driver's license, he gets arrested. And they've left Oklahoma, and they've gone because they just can't hang out, can't stay there because he goes to jail. And they've gone to Arkansas, where in Arkansas they can't stay there because Arkansas also can't afford food stamps in the first place. And so this really can be done. Of course, I don't know who's got the guts to do it, but
I think there's no question. Let me take this real quick because I think that you're on to something here because we're talking about economics, and there's no question that the immigration issue is breaking the back of certain institutions, namely the public schools and the hospitals and to some extent the prison system. But just by itself, this even if we solve this problem, George, don't you agree we would still have massive economic misfortunes in our future over the next 6 to 8 weeks?
Oh, sure. Unfortunately, we're now so far down the road. So many roads have that Texas, he's from Houston, so I appreciate this, that there are so many roads in Houston that have been basically auctioned off to the private use of corporations for a piece of the action going to the state. I mean, just the whole conduct of state government is not really able to solve what's an international problem. People are coming from Mexico because conditions in Mexico suck, because the people in Mexico have a government that's really corrupt. I mean, you think ours is corrupt? Theirs is too. It's just in a different way. Their way is Americans can buy property in Mexico, and if somebody in Mexico likes it, they'll go to court and take it away from the gringo. I mean, that's just the facts. So, governments around the world have lost touch, have broken the social contract with the governed. And it's not something unique to America. Russia, surprisingly, may not be as bad as it once was. And where we go from here depends on how much of a global consciousness arises about what humans deserve.
No question, and Russia and America are starting to meet in the middle.
We'll
come back to put a wrap on this tremendous interview with George Ure with Annie DeRiso after a word from our sponsors. And we're back. Our special guest tonight has been George Ure. And before we get to George's contact information and how you can get a hold of many of his fine publications, I have one last question for you, George. It's with great interest I've been watching Fox and Glenn Beck. In fact, I saw Glenn Beck's cameras go to Rockefeller Square outside the man's office and show a picture of a hammer on one side of the door and a sickle on the other side of the door, and then flash right to the old Soviet Union flag. What do you make of Fox's vitriolic attack on these old guard interests?
I look at it as almost, I don't want to say inter-scene warfare. I'll say inter-scene warfare, though. It's really a battle of ratings, and we're seeing the accentuation of left-right politics, because what people don't, the big secret that no one wants out in the mainstream media is that it's not a left-right game. It is an us versus them. It's a corporate power structure versus the governed. And so there's obviously a lot of drama, a lot of effort that gets put into making so-and-so a rightist or a leftist. But when you come right down to it, it's your standard of living, and that's determined by the up-down, not the right-left.
Yes, and neither side is to be trusted.
Oh, no, nobody's to be trusted. And I'm not kidding when I say, if it were a felony to make any political contributions interstate, then I think America would be a lot better off in the long term.
No question. Well, George, tell the people how they can contact you, receive some of your great publications like Peoplenomics.
Just go to urbansurvival.com. It's free, and I update it 5 days a week, although it seems like here for the last 6 months I haven't missed a Saturday either. And it's always amusing. I have a subscription service called Peoplenomics, which gets into some really interesting, in-depth reporting of things going on behind the scenes. Next week, for example, we're dealing more with what's the best method of allocating cash, and we'll be looking at a number of different government forecasts and looking forward to see, what the vision of the future is. And it's interesting because depending on which government bureaucracy you're talking about, defense or the groups that advise defense or the groups that advise the Labor Department or education, they've all got a different view of the future. I mean, it's like some of these guys don't talk to one another. Anyway, so that's Peoplenomics.
It is good stuff. I've been up there going through those many fine articles. In fact, when you have time to talk about time, and it's kind of an inside story between George and myself, I want to have you back on the show and also to update us on the latest trends. But I need some time to digest that article about time. My head is still spinning, but once I get my head wrapped around this topic, George, I want to have you back on the air to discuss this.
It's a really, really interesting topic, and there definitely is an economic angle to it, and it's an article. He's referring to an article that is on Peoplenomics this week called "The War Across Time." And it's a hypothetical, but with a source who's fed me some information that calls into question, is there an aspect of economic manipulation that transcends the time barrier?
Yes.
Anyway.
It's fascinating, and we're definitely going to have you back on to talk about that. And like I said, though, I read that, George, and I'm reasonably literate, and my head was spinning. Well, anyway, George, I want to thank you so much for being gracious with your time.
And Annie, I appreciate you being there, too, and I'm sorry we didn't get to talk more.
Well, it's hard to get in between you two. It's like talking to Jim Mars. I tell you, you can really go with it.
Wait till the next half hour. She will have a lot to say.
And if you give out information, be sure and give Half Past Human out for the web box.
Halfpasthuman.com. Using predictive linguistics will give you a very good feel. It won't tell you what stock to trade on what day, but it will tell you when to be out of Dodge and some of the big contextual changes that'll be coming down the road.
I think there's no question that's true, and after talking to Cliff, we have minimized our risk. Well, George, thanks so much for being with us, and I'll be in touch to schedule a follow-up, so we'll have time to talk about time.
And I will be here when you need me.
Thank you very much, George. Ladies and gentlemen, George Ure from UrbanSurvival.com.
Yes.